Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, we are going live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 59th Conclave of the Viola da Gamba Society of America, Metamorphoses, our first evening event performance lecture of the week. We're very excited about that. Just before we get on with the show, I wanted to give you a few reminders, conclave reminders. We had our first day of classes, and we'll have another full day of classes tomorrow. I wanted to remind you about the Zoom lunch, and because it's so tight with classes, we're going to start it a little late and end it a little early. So if you didn't get there today, you can get there tomorrow. And the Emporium at 6:45 to 7:45. We'll have Wes Brandt coming from the Netherlands to talk about sound posts and files and sound posts and all that good stuff. And in the evening, we will have the auction. During the day, don't forget, if you're an area rep or chapter rep, there will be a meeting at 4. And tonight, after this lecture, there's the Young Players Reception. So check your email for all these links. And without further ado, we're very excited about tonight's lecture by Laury Gutiérrez, and Julie Elhart, our music director, is going to introduce her to you.
Hi. Hello, everybody. I am very pleased to introduce our guest lecturer this evening, Laury Gutiérrez. I first met Laury about 30 years ago when she was studying at the College of St. Scholastica. I'm older than you, Laury, in Minnesota, where I live. And since that time, Laury has completed several degrees. She has received fellowships and has spent a couple decades or more researching these lesser known and underrepresented composers. Laury is the founding director of La Donna Music Hall, specializing in music by women composers, as well as directing Barroco, a Latin Baroque fusion ensemble, and she has recorded with both these ensembles. Laury has been a fellow at the Radcliffe Institute at Harvard University and is currently a resident scholar at the Brandeis University Women's Studies Research Center. Please welcome Laury Gutiérrez.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate you taking the time. We are going to start with our sharing the screen. Here we are. Afro-Baroque. I am curious what you think, what comes to your head, one word that comes to your mind when I say Afro-Baroque. Use your chat if you don't mind. Chat is the way I feel that I can connect to you, and the way that I don't feel too lonely here in this room when I know there are people listening. Yes? Julie, are you still with me?
I'm here, but I'm just out of sight.
Out of sight. Any responses yet? What do we think what word comes to your mind when I say Afro-Baroque?
I don't think I can see the chat box at this time, maybe at the end of the lecture.
Yes. While this is happening, I would like to thank Julie for making a point of inclusion with this Afro-Baroque lecture, and everyone that has made this Metamorphosis Conclave possible. The list is long. First, I'd like to start with the primary sources that I have been looking into. Oh, I need to fix something here, sorry, very quickly.
And Laury, I do have a couple of comments I can see in the chat box about, someone said Afro-Baroque makes them think it could be something to do with Northern Africa and the Moors. And somebody else said, or South America makes me think rhythm, sarabanda, moresca. Something to do with Spanish, Portuguese, and New World colonies.
All right. Okay. All right. Are we, Risa? Are we okay? Now we're sharing the screen. I believe in the way that it should be, except that I need to move the presenter's view. So moving on with what we want to accomplish today. I asked the questions because there are so many questions to ask. For instance, how non-whites were expressing themselves musically in the so-called early music period, and specifically, what traces of Africa can we find in European music at that time, in early music period, and how are we going to give it a historical performance? Because we study historical performance, we make a great deal of effort trying to figure out how to do trills in the Renaissance, which are different in the Baroque and they are different in the classical period. And we study everything in great detail. But what about the other music that was being heard in Europe? To be sure, I'm still in Europe and later on the Americas. But at the moment, those are some of the questions and answers that I'm looking into. Let's start with the sources for Afro-Baroque music. The first one I look into is the Black villancicos. These are the items that I have chosen in a way that we can put categories. So the Black villancicos, you go into the vocal music, and then you go to the Baroque dances, instrumental music, you go back to vocal music with the cancioneros, and then period playwrights and poetry mention both the dances and the other people, that non-white, that were in Europe. And then we have the colonies. I'll speak a little bit about it in a minute. But let's focus for a moment in the Black villancicos. They are also called guineos or negrillas. And let's start with the concept of villancico in general. It was a poetical form, a musical form, both in the Iberian Peninsula and in America. Then, within this big repertory, because it goes over a large period of time, and a lot of, this is like, villancico is like saying song. And so that covers the whole period of early music. And within these villancicos, we have character villancicos. These are villancicos that are trying to explain the other. So we see character villancicos that deal with African blacks, that deal with Portuguese, that deal with gypsies. So is the other, that's the character villancicos. And then the Black villancicos specifically deal with the African, mostly slaves in the Iberian Peninsula and the American colonies. This is happening in the end of the 16th century and 17th century. What is important, what is going to determine what is going to make a Black villancico Black is the language. The language, as you can see here, lengua de Prieto in Portugal, or bozal in Spain and in Spanish speaking countries. And so it's a variant of the Spanish or Portuguese with some words of African origin. And the crucial part of these villancicos is where they were used. And when we have the Christian feast, we're talking about the big ones like Corpus Christi, Christmas. That's when, towards the end of the, so we will call it a service, the church wanted to include the other, and they will have these villancicos in order to attract the black people. So a sample of the text is this little bit here, gulunga gulunge. And so that they use some of African words and sometimes just onomatopoeic words that don't mean anything. But the idea, again, is to pray for God, and maybe this God has some saints that are black, and that is one of the ways that they were trying to include the other. I would like to, if we can work it out, I would like to show you. We call it our COVID Black Villancico because we wanted to do these so badly, but we couldn't really be in one room together. We could, but we needed to take a lot of precaution. So I'm going to leave you as this what I have talked to you is sinking in your in your brains. Is I'm going to leave you for about 6 minutes in the performance of one of these black villancicos, and the subject is we're praising God, and I didn't want to take too much time with it, but here is I need to share it. One more second. Here is a sample. Again, in your YouTube channel, if you're having trouble with the audio or the visual of this video, you will find a link to watch this video at your leisure.
que sabe fuga, que sabe a fuga. Gulunga, 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 trinca com a mão, boli com a pé. Trinca com a mão, boli com a pé. Gulunga, 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 trinca com a mão, boli com a pé. Trinca com a mão, boli com a pé. Trinca com a mão, boli com a pé.
Thank you for listening. I had put the name of the performers in the earlier. There are some elements that are undoubtedly the show portray some of these traits that we will identify as in the Black villancico. So the first one that we mentioned is the text. So that's the most important element that will determine whether it's a Black villancico or another kind of villancico. We could be talking about the gypsy, it's a gypsy villancico, but if the language is bozal, or if the language is lengua de prieto, you can actually say that this for sure is a Black villancico. Now, just a couple of things I would like to say quickly. The singers and I and the organ were in one site, and the cuatro player, the little guitar and the boy percussionist and the male singer. So the boys, so to speak, they were in Venezuela. So we had to coordinate this, and some people are asking questions about it. So in the title, it said "Hola primo" or "a primo" a lo rumbarroco, because we added to it. As you can remember, in the early music period, I don't think there are some traces that the percussion was used, but it is never notated. So we use some rhythms from Venezuela, from the black community in Venezuela, and added to the songs. And in one section, it says they are coming to dance the furia, and we took that they are talking about the folia, but because they don't pronounce the L, they mix some of the context, some of the letters. Then we added the folia, so we changed. That's when it changed a little bit to minor, and we the cuatro guy improvised over it. And so we move on, and later on you have a section where they are going a lot slower because they are praising the baby Jesus. Now people are asking, did they dance? So this is very interesting because let's talk for a moment about this feast. So the church would have the usual mass in Latin, and it would have been a full mass. And at the very end, there is a procession, and sometimes a procession, and some, especially in the Corpus Christi, definitely in the Corpus Christi, definitely a procession. But there will be some kind of a way to acknowledge the other by adding to the festivities the music, that something that like perhaps like what we have heard. Did they dance? I don't know. I haven't found a proof, but it's very likely that they were like you at home were tapping your feet if they heard this music. The other important element that was they used to attract the Africans slaves was to not only to use the language, but to use some of the rhythms. And so you will hear some at some point there were cross rhythms, and also the call and response, typical of African music. So this was happening outside of the church most of the time. So because the procession would have been outside of the town, of the church. So it's possible they could have danced. They were not inside. It's possible that that they would have moved around. I mean, why not? Anyway, let's continue with the others because I have lots to tell you. We are moving now to, if you don't mind, to the next source of where I'm looking to trace elements of African music, African culture, African love. So the other dance that we are looking at, so the Chacona and the Saravan, we associate it with French music, as especially viola da gamba players. But these two songs, these two genres, had nothing to do with the French and the later Chacon and Sarabanda. Especially talking about the Sarabanda would have been, they are always talking about it being fast. But anyway, I put here a few of these dances in the, am I sharing? No, I'm not sharing. Oh, that's bad. Here, I'm going to share the screen so that you can see what I am seeing. So those are the dances that that I was just mentioning. Chacon, the Chacona, the Saravan, the Sarambeke. the Guineo, and the Cumbe, the Paracumbe, Lantu. These are only, there are some. There's not a huge, large repertoire, and we will talk in a minute about that. But where do we hear these? Where do we find out these words, these dances? So it turns out that the dictionaries do talk about them. We have the first dictionary of the Castilian language. 1609, around 1609, and the following version, which is starts in 1732. These are dictionaries that were period dictionaries, and they mention, and then there is an English dictionary, 1506, and later on we have even later dictionary of Spanish and English language. So going through the dictionaries help us define a little bit these dances. Where are they coming from? So one of them is the Sarambeque, and is defined here as a performance, is a dance, is happy, alegre, bulliciosa, noisy, that is very often among the blacks, los negros. And then these dictionaries are fabulous because they put a sample. And it says, ya que saltos y brincos, jumps and you're jumping, and have made the laws, and que tequete requeteque, lindo sarambeque. Teke requeteque is just onomatopoeic. It really doesn't have a meaning so far I know. And it mentions the dance. So this is coming from this work here. And I think we might have just enough time to play a little bit of what our performance of the Sarambeque, so that you get a taste. What is interesting about the Sarambeque is that it is in 3/4. What we were playing early is a lot of it is in 6/8, or some resemblance of 6/8, 12/8, something over that line, and this one is in 3/4. So here you have a little bit of it. This, what you're seeing here, right here, that's a violin tablature. John, are people seeing the video now? Yes? Okay, so here is the Sarambeque. I'm going to stop the piece there because when we were, and that's a lot what that Rumba Rocco does, taps into the memory of cultural memories, of musical memories. So when we were practicing the Sarambeke, that reminded of something called Seis Fajardano. And anytime I play a Sarambeke, be this the Salamanca one or the Murcia one, it reminds us, South Americans, of a piece that starts with the name Seis. In this case, the Salamanca the Salamanca Sarambeke reminded us of the Seis Fajardeño, which is from Puerto Rico. And then when we played this summer, we played the Murcia Sarambeke. It reminded us of the Seis Venezuelan joropo, which is called Seis por Derecho. So it's interesting how this music can bring us to where we are right now. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. This is somebody hopefully is putting some links so that you could watch it at your leisure time. So I am going to continue because we are running out of time. We talked about the Sarambeke, and of course, the one dance that we love is because we have perhaps a few more of them is the Cumbe, and this is where these dictionaries help us a lot, because this is from the one of the ones that I showed you earlier. Oh, I need to share a screen. Sorry, just 1 second. So as I was saying, these dictionaries are important because you have the mention. It says baile de negros, clearly. There's no other question. So dance of blacks that is made with playing very happy, and it implies meneos del cuerpo. That means wiggling your body from one side to the other. So and then it gives you a sample here of where, you know, in this so-called Mojiganga, they speak of the Las Folias y el Cumbe, and saying expressing the likeness of the folias and the Cumbe. So again, these are pieces that bring us to somehow in contact with the Africans. In what way? Well, the dictionaries are telling us, and we are trying to figure out how we can tap into that. So I'm going to share one more video with you. John, is it showing the... No, it's not showing, is it? Let me try it again. Let me know if you can see it.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Thank you for letting me know one more time. Now? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you again for listening. We are going back to screen sharing the PowerPoint. So I thank my colleagues, and I hope somebody is going to ask me what was that little guitar that she was playing. By the way, it's called Puerto Rican Cuatro. Anyway, we keep moving on to this one, the Saraband. It has has had a lot of ink. It is translated. Again, the dictionary help us define it. It's a very lively, happy dances. You see why I was doing this work during the pandemic, trying to cheer up with all of this. But I believe we're running out of time, so I'm going to move a little quicker here. One of the sources that we look at is also the recollections of the memories that were written. And Fray Diego Duran, in his codex, talks about the Sarabanda and placing the Sarabanda in the late 1500, so ahead of. So I want to say something about this. People fight over where was it being born. Was it the Sarabanda? Was it in the New World? Was it in the Old World? And there's a lot of discussion. But what people are missing is that a lot of there was a lot of traveling between the continents, and it's possible that within months, well, maybe a few months, maybe a year, you could hear a piece in Sevilla or in the New World. So I think it's going to continue to be a debate where everything came from, but undoubtedly this codex and Robert Stevenson pointed it out, and there has been always more discussion. So where is this music? Where can we find this music? So I don't know if you're familiar with something called a fake book. In jazz is this song with the chords and people grab that book and you can play wherever you are. Well, these were kind of the fake book of the time, where they teach you how to play the instrument in tablature, so to be clear, and they gave you the dances. And this is how long a Sarambeque was. So as you can see, not very long. They're just giving you the chords and the rhythm, and then you get another dance, Paracumbe, and so forth. These are the places we look, and perhaps this is why people have not looked at it, because the music is not complicated, but as you can see, it's the rhythmic intricacy. It looks very simple, right? But you have to be, you're going against each other, so to speak, as you can see in the rhythms. And that makes it a lot of fun, and very rhythmic. And this Dehuete, here you have a Sarambeque Criollo, and I think we saw that. And here is your Sarambeque Criollo, and the Paracumbe translated. The other person that we find a lot of these dances is Santiago De Murcia. And again, like Gaspar Fernandez, Santiago De Murcia, these are biographies that are constantly being reviewed. People thought he was from Spain, Santiago de Murcia, and then they thought that he went to Mexico, and then they think he never went to Mexico. But what is true is that we find his books in Mexico, and also recently they found in Chile. So the pasacalles and obras, for instance, don't have any of these African tendency music, but the Códice Saldavar does. And so that makes it more interesting, the idea that he might have gone to Mexico, or somehow he had some kind of contact with Mexico. Keep speaking. Finally, we get to the largest amount of music that not necessarily shows, not necessarily, but it may, shows traces of African music or African tinted music, but this large repertory called cancioneros or songbooks have an incredible amount of villancicos. And what I would like to call the attention is a particular one called the Cancionero de Uppsala, or the Duque de Calabria, and it was actually it was published in Venice, not in Spain, but it was reflecting the music from Spain. In this book, we have a piece that is of great interest to us. But let me explain just a couple of things. View of Morena. So now we're talking about people. We talked about music, the villancicos, the black villancicos. Then we talk about the dances. These are a little bit tangible traces of African music. But when with the Morena, we're taking on the social aspect of it, or other parts of the cultural aspect. So Morena means a dark-skinned woman. Women. So it could be very dark as in black, or brown as in brown. So what is interesting, and I find it fascinating, that in the villancicos, the reference to the Morena are always positive. People are falling in love with these beautiful morenas, and they are going crazy for them. So what are those morenas? And so they're talking about the color of the skin. And sometimes he says in this dictionary, maybe not all completely black, but like the Moros, Moros. And in the 18th century dictionary, Brank has the definition. And we also look into Moros and related perhaps to the Moors. Let's look at that Morenica Uppsala. So this is the facsimile edition of it, and you have the pieces there, and this for me is where it all starts. Let's remember for a moment the Psalms of Psalms by Solomon. And in one of them, at the beginning, we hear the famous Nigra sum sed formosa. I am black and beautiful. And the fact that in this piece has been, they use a little bit, I don't know if you can read here, but the text says, Soy la espina rosa que Salomón canta y glosa. I am the rose without thorns that Solomon sings and praises. Nigra sum sed formosa. I am black and beautiful. And for me, you will sing. And that gave me the license to start looking for these songs all over the cancionero repertory. And here's the translation. I am the rose without thorns. I am about whom Solomon sings. I am black and beautiful, and for me they will sing. And
Soy la espina rosa que Salomón canta y glosa, nigra sum sed formosa y por mi seca.
Sorry, I need a feedback. Somebody, are you able to hear the? Oh yes, that was a yes. Oh sorry. Okay, it's very short, so I'll just play it for you.
Soy la espina rosa que es el amor, canta y glosa nigra sum, sed formosa y por mí se cantará, y por mí se cantará.
So, we make a point, we are playing this piece with a lot of noise, and we stop when she says those words. Other sources that I will be looking into are cofradías. These are very interesting institutions where the Black created like some kind of social system where they will have a membership, and they would get higher paid, really fascinating system. And I will be looking into payments to musicians to see what kind of musicians were playing on those Corpus Christi, big religious. And also, I'd like to look into the iconography, looking for traces of percussion instruments, etc. The theater is also a great source of information. And as I said before, we had the travels account are very interesting, that will help us to find more and more. So this is a subject to be continued, and I would like to thank you again for paying attention. This is an enormous project with, as you can see, different aspects to it. The Black Villancicos is one that I will be focusing in the next few months, as I was granted the pleasure to honor Tom Sajak memory with this project of the Black Villancicos. And I will be studying more of these cofradías, more of these religious events that may lead us to more information. But to be sure, I'm looking also to the performance practices, the current performance practices, because I think what is important to see is that you have the Iberian Peninsula, which is a melting pot where Africans and everybody is passing by. It's a port. Sevilla is a port, and from there, from that melting pot, you have these people that come to South America, and these cultures that are mixing and becoming one culture is brought to the Americas. And when they bring it to the Americas, they are going to mix now with the indigenous, and they create yet another mixing of culture and in music. I am hoping that by looking at the performance practices now, we can perhaps trace back some of the performance practices of the past. But one thing is to be sure, we cannot longer treat this music like second-class citizens, because it's there for us to explore, it's there for us to enjoy. It's very joyful music, and why not? You can be creative, but at the same time be historically informed. So if we study so intensively our techniques to bring back Bach and Vivaldi, why not put the same effort to bring back this music? I thank you.
Wow, Laury, wonderful. Thank you so much. This is
Julia, I
so
cannot hear
exciting
you.
to hear.
Oh.
Oh. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry.
Hi, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for presenting this lecture. It's just amazing music, and it's so much fun. I loved it. And it's great to hear how other we're enriched by being involved and understanding other cultures. And I think it's important that we just keep enriching our lives by doing this exploration. And thank you for spending all your years doing this and presenting this to us in classes this week and also tonight. I know that there are some questions in the chat box and state and comments here. Someone has said, commented, Afro-medieval reminds me of Thomas Binkley of being accused of learning his tambourine rhythms for cantigas from a Moroccan bar. And no reason to think, yeah.
Yeah, I love, who did that question? What's the name of the person?
Audrey Winch, I believe.
Audrey. That is an extraordinary question. First, because it allows me to thank my alma mater, Indiana University, where I couldn't be doing this without Indiana University. I never cried in my life so much because I was tortured by Wendy Gillespie.
She's probably listening.
And the torture meant for us to learn to look at manuscripts and facsimiles. And we had to pass an exam where you had to look at a piece of music, sight read it, and tell anything historical about it. So, of course, I failed the first time, and so did everybody else. But Thomas Binkley was the first that installed in my head and my heart the fact that you could not trust musicology's scores because they hadn't gone through the performance of it. And so ever since he installed that in my little brain, I looked into women composers and brought back that. But without Indiana University, I wouldn't have, without all the tortures that we went through, because nobody else, no other school was so hard on it. You had to, in order to graduate it, you had to be able to hold a piece of music from another period and be able to give an educated. So I welcome this opportunity to thank Thomas Binkley, maybe wherever he is, and Wendy Gillespie, and the faculty in Indiana University. I was very privileged to spend time there. But to address the question per se, I am so glad that you bring it up because, Audrey, one of our so many next projects is the cantigas. And what they did, see, the problem is the Anglo-Saxon musicologies, that they stilled everything that was not white and kosher. No, I shouldn't say kosher. White and European. They erased it. I remember there was a musicologist that was associating the cantigas to Andalusian music, and he was bombarded, and he was like, no, and quite the contrary. That is the way to do it, because the cantigas, in the 11th century, you have that mix of cultures. You have that people asking you to join forces, to be together. This is the whole golden, and later on you get, just a little later, you get the golden period in Spain where the Jews and the Muslims and the Christians are living together and making music together. So this is absolutely Binkley. I think was in the right track to try to learn from other cultures, because those were the cultures that were prevalent then at that time. So thank you, Audrey. Love that question.
Yes. There's another question. Can you tell us more about the Puerto Rican cuatro?
Well, and I will. By the way, somebody's saying Joanna is Binkley. I think is my hero. Anyway, I'm still in Binkley. We even had a verb to get binked. That's when he torture us a little bit more. But going back to your question of the and this is part of why I'm so excited about these topics. So if you grab a Renaissance guitar, actually I was playing one in a little earlier. If you grab a Renaissance guitar, it's tuned in fourth with a third in the middle, and then you can have a re-entry string or an octave or lower or higher. So that tuning is the same tuning of an instrument called a Venezuelan cuatro. So there is a whole, so the instruments that the Europeans brought to South America were transformed in each country. And so in Puerto Rico is different because the Puerto Rican cuatro is in fifth. So it probably is reflecting more the violin, but it also has double strings. And so again, this instrument is the transformation of perhaps a type of Baroque guitar, and they made their own, and that's their national instrument. In Venezuela and Colombia, we have an instrument called tiple. In Chile and Argentina, you have one that you make it with the part of an animal, what do you call it? The shell of an animal. So that's fascinating because the best one is the ukulele that you have in Hawaii. Everybody thinks Hawaii, ukulele, Hawaii. But I invite you to listen to the BBC who did a piece on this, and they made it clear it was the Portuguese that brought it to Hawaii, and they took it over. So these connections over these many continents is what fascinates me, and which gives me hope that we can start connecting with each other.
Oh, there's a couple questions from Alice Robbins. One was, how is the La Folia related to La Gamba? And the second question was, when incorporating the bembe, a new piece incorporating bembe, when does it become cultural appropriation?
Right. So I think that cultural appropriation means when you don't respect the music or the culture that you are dealing with. And this respect means it's the same process of historical performance. Finding the sources, finding what's the truth, the heart of that piece. And I think that's when you disrespect another culture or another piece, that's cultural appropriation, and that's of course wrong. But what we do when we explore, because we are listening to this piece and it reminds us of something that we know, is we're connecting the past and the present. So we are not. And then but when we do this by ear, by playing the pieces with the ensemble, but then we go and study it and figure out what are the relationship, what is the connection. And there was a beautiful one we were going to do the Morenica in Ixexa, which is a Brazilian rhythm. And it was beautiful because the connection, because Ixexa was also a type of music that was to praise the women. And so it couldn't be more perfect. I mean, it couldn't be more perfect. The parallelism praising the black woman in the 16th century and using something that is currently alive. So some of us think that early music is alive in South America.
Thank you, Laury. It's obvious you have such a strong passion for this, and that passion is very catchy, and I hope it spreads and spreads. And we appreciate this lecture so much. Thank you, everybody. I think we'll let you get on to the rest of your evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Julie, if I may save some of the comments so I can.
Yes.
Thank you. Are we saying goodbye?
Yes, we are. I think we are.
All right. Julie, truly, I cannot thank you enough.
Yes, I think we might still be live. I'm not